Welcome back to the Deliberate Exchange. My name is Chelsea. Okay, so this, I asked in a recent Instagram story if people wanted to hear more about the house build, and of course, everybody wanted to hear about it. There was a lot of response. And so I'm going to talk about the house build, but more in the sense of like what it did to me while we were doing it. And this might be helpful also for anybody who's ever thought, like, I'm doing all the right things. Why am I still losing it? So, if you found yourself in a meltdown and you're wondering, like, how did I get here? Even when you meditate, even when you journal, you practice breath work, like, that was me. And so, I'm going to share that story and how it kind of turned up, like the kind of bad experiences. That, to be perfectly honest, I'm a little ashamed of, that was the behavior that I was exhibiting. Like, it wasn't pretty, but I guarantee you it will be honest. So, and it's also really important. I want to share about stress and the nervous system and how our healing work doesn't always kick in when we need it the most. So, as I've talked about on this podcast before, we built a house in 2023. And so it was a lot. It was a very nuanced, to put it lightly, experience. Now, just a little bit of context. I had been living in Toronto for 16 years. In the middle of the pandemic, I ended up moving home to live with my mom. While I'm living at home with my mom, I end up meeting a guy, Kevin, my partner. I end up moving back with him in the city, like downtown Toronto. So I'm kind of like all over the place insofar as like a home. But I'm trying to get into my practices that I started in 2020. And I've got a pretty good foothold on like a foundation of meditating in the morning, breath work, journaling, that kind of stuff, not drinking also. And so Kevin and I decide that we're going to go forward with building a house, which had been like on my, dream list for a couple of years. And I had told him about it, and I had an opportunity to build on my father's property. And so like we started going for it, and we started putting wheels in motion in like January of 2023. Which meant like getting quotes and getting drawings done. It meant putting down massive deposits for builders and all that kind of stuff. And then it also meant that we had to kind of strategize like where we were going to be living. Like we had to, make sure that we were terminating the lease where Kev was living and have somewhere to live. So we decided we're going to live in my father's basement this time while we were building the house, because we were building it in the backyard of my father's place. And so you can imagine like there's a lot of different factors here. There's living in a basement with my father, with my partner, with our dog. He's got 2 dogs, and I'm draining my bank account at alarming rates to pay for the house and all the things that go with it, like the engineers and the architects and, like I said earlier, the builder. And also like it's scary. Like now I'm used to doing construction, but I'm not used to building something for myself. I'm not used to putting that work in. And so just setting the stage for, what is to come. Now, even after we moved here, which was in June of 2023, we broke ground in June of 2023. So like literally we're ripping up the grass, we're digging big holes, and like it's pretty exciting. And I'm still getting up in the morning, I'm doing my breath work, I'm doing my journaling, I'm doing my meditation, and kind of having like this whole like set it and forget it kind of mindset. Like I really thought that was enough and that I had things on lock. Like I was done the work, right? Which was pretty audacious of me. And I was wrong. Now, there was a few ugly moments throughout the build. And again, like, because there's been a buildup of stress and like anxiety, like when you are pouring everything into something, like like a house, it's a lot. And I remember there was quite a few screaming matches that I had with Kev. Like, I mean, rage, like pure yelling at him. We're yelling at each other. We had set up like a little side office in like what is now our bedroom. And I remember like one fight, like just like I was slamming my fists into the glass top table, so overcome with rage. Like I didn't know what to do. And like that's a fight response right there. Your nervous system, or my nervous system, thought that the only way to protect myself was to push outward, to expand my energy, to diffuse the threat. There was another time that I actually punched fence boards until my knuckles bled. Like, I'm a life coach who deals with mindset, who teaches people how to breathe, to calm down, and I am punching fence boards. So much so that my knuckles bled and scabbed, and I have scars on them to this day. And again, like that's also a fight response, but more than that, that was like a somatic discharge of like suppressed powerlessness and frustration that I had felt. And like I didn't know what to do. Like I knew I felt those things, but I didn't know what to do with it. And then there was another time, like I'm driving along, and like I'm going through all the worst case scenarios, like if there was something that was happening, and I can't remember what in particular was causing the trigger, but I was scared, like not in a sense of like I'm driving and I'm feared for my safety there, but I'm scared for having a sense of security and is this all going to work out? And so I was like punching the dashboard, punching the door beside me, like I'm trying to outrun my feelings, but also discharging all this trapped intensity, right? So that's a lovely mix of fight and flight response. And then there were also moments where I froze. Like I would be still. I couldn't make a decision. I couldn't carry on a conversation. Towards the end of the project, and I've talked about this in past episodes, like Kev had to take over because I couldn't function. We had a couple of people really let us down financially and like work-wise, and I couldn't anymore. I was done. And that is a dorsal vagal shutdown. My nervous system was saying it's too much, and I'm just going to shut you down for a while. And then maybe like the most insidious ones, like I think that are maybe a little more relatable to some, is like I found myself constantly checking my phone during conversations. And like this was something that drove Kevin nuts. Like we're trying to have a meeting with like our builder and we're trying to talk, and like I couldn't help the compulsion of checking it. And it wasn't because I didn't care, but I couldn't stand to be present like within myself. I needed something to like check out with, something to make it feel like I wasn't drowning. And that's like a very subtle flight response. Like this is emotional avoidance 101 masked as distraction. Like I got to check an email. And like Kev, even like I said, Kev was pretty frustrated with that behavior. And like he said, like, I just want to like take your phone and throw it across the yard. And I don't blame him. Like if I were to see that behavior, I'd be frustrated too. Now, every single time one of those reactions happened, the very next thing I felt was massive shame. Like, and even talking about these, and like when I was journaling about like what I was going to talk about, writing these things and saying them out loud, like I feel that same pang of shame rise up in my chest, because that isn't me. I do the work. So like, why was I still reacting like this? I thought that my reactive days were limited to when I was drinking, like when that really exasperated the anxiety and the depression and the, short fuse because the exhaustion, like all that kind of stuff. So The build at that time, it was chronic and it was compounding stress for all that context that I mentioned earlier. It was long days and it was that deep resource depletion, financially, emotionally, physically, psychologically. My body did not feel safe, even when my mind and truly everything around me said, you're fine. And I'm grateful for the morning rituals because they were helping. Like, I think that the reactions and what I explained would have been far worse had I not had those. And I was also not drinking. And that is also a massive win that I experienced that degree of stress and I did not have the compulsion to win. So I had won that battle, which I'm really proud of myself for. But all of those aren't enough on their own. Underneath of it all, my nervous system was wired for survival. It was defaulting to old stories. It was trying to protect me the best that it could do and best that it knew how to do. And that was with reactivity that really didn't match the moment. The part that really stuck, though, is that even after the house was done, those reactions didn't just disappear. They haunted me, to be perfectly honest. I couldn't just get over them. I really needed to understand them because I didn't want to go through that again. So I got curious. Like, what, not just like, why did I blow up, but what happened in my body before the blow up? What was the tripwire? What's the loop? Like, what is the trigger here? And that's when I started to see that, like, it wasn't about fixing the emotions that I was having. Like, for a lot of good reasons, all of what I was feeling was very valid. What I was missing at the time was creating safety inside of those emotions. And with the help of my mentors, Claire and Tay, I finally started to connect those dots. Like, how to notice when I'm tipping toward a fight response before I say something that I massively regret. How to recognize freeze before I completely shut down. How to meet my stress responses with presence and awareness instead of shame. And more than anything, how to hold all of it, the rage, the grief, the overwhelm, without labeling any of it as bad or something that I needed to fix. Like I was a project that needed fixing. So now, when I catch it in the moment and I can name the reaction and breathe into it, that is such a glorious win. I can't even tell you. And it's growth. Like, that is what being rooted enough to rise above the reactivity actually means. And that's what I want to offer to you. Like, this is what we do inside of Rooted and Rising and why I created it, based on like what I've done over the last 5.5 years and everything that I've learned about habits and foundation, but also what I've learned about the nervous system, stress responses, and how breathwork serves as this beautiful vehicle to really shift how those reactions are. And like, it isn't just about breathwork. I want to teach people how to rewire the way that their body responds to stress, because the stress isn't going to go away. There's always going to be something. I say this often. Good people are going to die. Bad things are going to happen. And so how you respond and how your body responds to stress, so that you're not just coping and you're actually moving through it and healing, is really important to me, and like a massive part of my mission on this earth now. And so if something like this is calling out to you, the first session kicks off June 5th. And my intention is to run it monthly. So if you're hearing this later, check in to see when the next one is happening. And inside these series, like they're 4 weeks, we look at the science of stress and your nervous system, how to recognize your own specific fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses, tools to bring your system back to safety without bypassing or like toxic positivity or shutting down what is real. and giving you practices that actually meet your body where it's at, so you can integrate the work and not just think about it pragmatically and think like, I know I shouldn't react that way, but I'm reacting that way. Oftentimes, we don't actually need more information, right? Knowledge is power, but action is total power. You need transformation and the embodied kind. And to me, and what's worked is the breath. Like, it starts with the breath. So I'm going to link some things in the show notes. You can shoot me a message if you'd like to talk about whether this is right for you. But I hope that in sharing my story, you understand that you can hit those lows and those points where you're like behaving in a way that you know isn't in congruence with who you are. And it could be about drinking and it could not be about drinking. Like, that is definitely a pillar of what I do and how I help. But it's possible to start feeling better and to manage and to feel good holding space for everything. So just remember, you're not alone and you're not broken. Your nervous system is just learning to come home, and I'm here to help. So if this episode has resonated, if you're surprised by some of the reactions that I shared in this, that I experienced during the house build, let me know. Because I know that on Instagram and Facebook, I definitely portrayed like this happy, positive self, and that is absolutely me. I also make sure that I try and talk about the real moments. And so there's a couple of reels and posts in there talking about the hard stuff, because that's what this human experience is all about. But if you're surprised by some of these experiences that I've shared today, let me know. Send me an email. Like, share, subscribe, rate, review. Thank you so much for listening. I'm really glad that you're here. In the meantime, breathe it in, be deliberate, and please be good to yourself.